Well, what is excessive force in law enforcement? Well, here to talk about that is Lima attorney Jerry Pitts. Welcome, Jerry.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. Okay, so explain the topic.
Well, everybody, I get lots of calls. The officers use excessive force. People use that word, and that's not even the case. Number one, the officers have what they call immunity. Mm-hmm. That means that they, in the exercise of their duties, they have a lot of leeway doing that. And each case by case, how they operate in dealing with people is not always excessive force. To have excessive force, it is so difficult to even show or even prove. Number one, you can't just walk in a regular court. You got to walk into a federal court to even do that. Federal court nowadays is just so difficult. And it's too expensive, number one. But the qualified immunity means that the officer, even if they should find that there might have been something slightly wrong with the officer, the way they did things, it still won't be sufficient to be considered as excessive force. Excessive force takes about 20 or 30 different elements to prove to get there. So it's so difficult. That's why people should listen to what I said earlier. Shut your mouth up, sit down, and cooperate. Because you're talking about excessive force and even suing the officers is going to be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And furthermore, even if you should find something, the insurance companies come in after that to defend the officer. And plus, you got the officers have their own internal things that they have. So it's going to be difficult. I'm just going to talk about a couple things. First of all, it should probably be a warrantless arrest, meaning that the officer didn't have a warrant, that something occurred during that time to make them even approach you. And during that, the officer's conduct has to be so wrongful, so extreme. It's almost like that Ferguson case, or the case that they had in Chicago, those kind of cases where it's just a total mistake where the officer got the wrong person and has shot or something like that, someone who was not even the proper person. But then there's all kinds of exceptions to that. Did the officer have reasons or cause at that time to think that that was the person? So by the time you do all of that, it's not worth it. It's better, you're better off behaving, doing as instructed, because if you're trying to do that excessive force and thinking you're going to get a bunch of money, by the time that is appealed for wherever it's going to go, from the federal level to almost the United States Supreme Court, you don't have that kind of money, and most people can't afford to do that anyway.
Right.
So that's, I would like to, at some point, try to, maybe next month, go through some more of these elements of what excessive force would be.
Yeah.
Now, I have done a few of those cases myself in federal court and from the city of Bellefontaine, some other places, that turn out okay. But people got to understand that the steps and the elements there are just so great. But now we got the cameras. The officers got their cameras, so with those cameras, that helps out a lot, but it also helps them a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the question that would come on is why that camera isn't on during a time if there's an incident. Now, everybody's got a lot of explaining to do. So then, you got that explaining to do why that camera wasn't on, which may be an indication that there might be something going on that it shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
But if the camera is on and they're showing the individual and their activities, then it's not likely you're going to have any remote excessive force. Plus, people need to really understand that in the officers in the midst of doing their duties, that there's all kinds of extenuating circumstances, and we need to know that our officers are human too.
That's right.
So we have to be very careful how we handle those things.
Yeah, a lot of factors there, Jerry. A lot of factors to think about there. So you can't just throw it out willy-nilly, right?
No.
Yeah.
So you don't be jumping up and screaming, you use excessive force. No such thing.
Right.
The best thing to do is be polite.
Yep.
Try to cooperate.
Yeah.
And so that everybody can get their job done safely.
Yeah, good advice, Jerry, as always. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. I
Thank
appreciate
you for
it.
having me.
My pleasure.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
my friend.
thank you. Thank you. All right, well, don't go away because